am so honored to be here today to tell you about our guest speaker, Terry McBride. Woo! The song was the perfect setup, because if you don't understand why we say an amen, by the time he's done talking to you, it will be crystal clear. Terry McBride is a practicing metaphysician, because we all call ourselves metaphysicians, but all of us do not practice. Okay, sometime do not make a practicing metaphysician. He is a practicing metaphysician who has demonstrated what it is that we teach. He has demonstrated it and is willing to share it with everyone here. He is an empowering presence on the planet. He is a healing presence on the planet. He is a powerful presence on the planet. If you came in here with any doubt, fear, anxiety about the truth of who you are, he is just like the Ajax man. He's going to remove all that, dissolve all that. I'll let him tell you a little bit more. But I just want you to let your heart soften, to open your inner ear, and to receive the gift Terry brings to you. Terry, please come forward.
Right there is fine. Thank you. God, it's good to stand in front of you again. For 35 years, I've been traveling around the country and speaking at Science of Mind centers and Unity centers. This year, I'm going to do about 34. And I want to tell you, every time Georgia calls me and says, listen, I think it's time that you come back, part of me just wiggles like a puppy. It's like, oh, goody! Who you are, what you represent. You know, you've been to other centers. What you do here, not just on Sunday, but through the week, makes a huge difference in the whole world. And I'm honored again to stand in your presence. Somebody asked me between services, so what's the biggest thing that's happened to you since you were here about 3 years ago? And I said, well, I turned 70 years old. I remember, which seems like not too long ago, when 70 was really old. And what I want to tell you is it's not. Can you imagine what it would be like to look into the mirror and be divided about what you see? Can you imagine what it would feel like to look at your own physical body and be excited with the knowledge that you're God, expressing uniquely as woman? God expressing uniquely as man. Not when you fix yourself. Not when you do all that stuff, you know, when you let go enough, when you're willing enough, when you're open enough, when you have your palms up enough, feet flat on the floor, breathe into your nose, raise your kundalini energy enough, or get rid of your karma. I'm talking about right now, just the way you are. You look into the mirror and spontaneously go, that's God looking back at me. That's what Georgia Prescott brings to the world. Science of mind has been around a long time. And some of us who've been in it for a long time remember in the old days when it used to be kind of dry. You know, it's all about mind stuff and all that stuff. I had the fortune of meeting and getting to know a woman named Ventura Papke. When I knew her, she was in her late 80s. She was the practitioner at Founders Church with Ernest and Hornaday. And we were talking one night, and she said, you know, towards the end of Ernest's life, like the last year, we were talking, and he said, you know, if I had it to do over again, I'd bring in a lot more love into this philosophy. Nice job. What I want to tell you this morning, what I want to talk about is this idea of discovering your own power and authority. I mentioned the first service. I could be wrong here, but based on what's gone on this morning in both services, there appears to be a lot of the feminine energy that expresses these truths, which I love. Having 2 daughters, 2 granddaughters, and 6 ex-wives, I love women. I think at 70, I'm done. Anyway, you see, what science of mind is about is, it's not about use these principles, and when you die, you go to heaven. You go to a better place. You go to that place we heard about when we were kids that's paved with gold and everything, all your dreams come true. Science of mind is not about that. Science of mind is about you use these principles on a daily basis, and this becomes heaven on earth. Now, if you say that kind of stuff with a more gentle approach, you're already holy. You're already magnificent. You have the right and the authority to make your dreams come true. Sometimes that's more palatable than you are magnificent, and any idea other than that is a lie claiming to be the truth, and you have the right and the authority to make your dreams come true. Because when you say it like that, what we're used to is people saying, well, that sounds like ego to me. But I want to tell you, the power and authority religious science brings to the human race is not quiet and subdued. It's a power and authority where we get to stand boldly right now with who we are and declare our own divine magnificence and our divine power. But it's hard to own that. Here, Sunday, especially when the whole service starts off with this woman getting us to feel the truth of what this center is about. It's easy to understand that. It's easy to own it. But sometimes when we go out into the real world, not that this isn't real, but out there, we're bombarded with the things that don't work. Catastrophe, the future disasters that are coming, climate change, and the helplessness and chaos in the world. And it's hard to stay centered in the magnificence of who we are. And yet that is what science of mind is about. Science of mind is not about giving up your attachments to the outcome. Science of mind is not about accepting your human limitations and making the best of it. Science of mind is not about accepting pain and suffering. Science of mind is about standing boldly in the truth of who you are and declaring any reality you want. Because this philosophy is this whole purpose of science of mind is about you discovering your own power and authority, and the way you do that is you make your dreams come true. Where else are you going to go on the planet where an organization like this with this kind of support would look you in the eye and say, honestly, what are your dreams? What are your aspirations? And yet that's the foundation for Science of Mind. When I walked into my first Science of Mind church in Seattle over 40 years ago, I picked up a little brochure, like we got out there telling this is what Science of Mind is about, that kind of thing. And what it said was, Science of Mind is a correlation of the laws of science, the opinions of philosophy, and the revelation of religion applied to your needs and your aspirations. This is not about what God wants for you. This is about what do you want for you. And as you use these principles, what you discover is that you are the God that you have been seeking. Where else are you going to say that stuff? You say that kind of stuff some places in our country and they shoot you. What you have an opportunity here to do is to begin to use what Ernest calls spiritual thought force to create the life you want. Notice what he says, spiritual thought force. You have power. You have authority. Over and over and over in his writings. I was reading this again last night, Living the Science of Mind. As I opened it, the back or front sort of fell off, or almost, and people said, why don't you get a new one of those, And I said, no, it's got all my underlines in it. I've been reading this book for 20 years, and this is the one I carry with me all the time, because in this book, Ernest over and over reminds me that I have authority, that I am right now the crowning achievement of the living God. See, that's what Science of Mind offers you. Science of Mind isn't about you need to fix yourself. You need to go do something before you're holy. Science of Mind starts from you're already holy. You're already a unique expression of the divine. You are already magnificent. And what I love most is it says you are already powerful. Because what Ernest says Jesus brought to the party, and Ernest says the whole purpose of Science of Mind is to prove the teachings of Jesus. I love a lot of great, I've read a lot about some of these other great philosophies that are signified by the different symbols up here, and I love some of them. But Science of Mind isn't about working off your karmic debt. Science of Mind is not about accepting your sacred contract that you made before you came in. Those are great ideas and great theories, and some people receive tremendous benefit out of studying and applying those principles. Science of Mind is about you are right now the unique expression of God, and the rest you get to make up. What are your dreams? What would it feel like if spontaneously, I'm not talking about an affirmation that you've written out or a treatment that you've written out or an affirmative prayer, whatever word you use. I'm talking about you walk down that hall, and as you walk past the mirror and you see your reflection, you just automatically go, ha ha, that's God looking back at me. That's what this center offers you, that realization, that reality, so you wake up in joy. So you go to bed excited about who you are and thrilled about what you're doing. So you move into your life with a sense of purpose, a sense of vision, and a willingness to move past some of the things which historically might have kept us in the background. And what this center offers you are sisters and brothers who demonstrate how they use these principles and stand boldly in the reality of their own magnificence. That's what it offers you. And Ernest Holmes says that you've got to figure out how to get to this place yourself. He says the truth about you is this magnificent being, this holy being, this powerful being. And he also says that it's hard to own that because we've been brought up in an environment that says you're your stuff, you're your past. We walk around, I'm the adult child of an alcoholic parent, I'm the product of a dysfunctional family, my small self and saboteur are always trying to lead me astray, my ego is always trying to separate me from God. And we verbalize the rest of that kind of stuff, and we tend to believe it. And it locks us into a box. What Georgia offers you here, what your staff offers you here, is the ability to uncover the truth that will set you free. And on page 245 of Living the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes says this: this uncovering process has to be unique to you. You have to figure it out for yourself, and it can take many forms. Sometimes the form of thought that you use in this uncovering process is reasoning. You lay it out based on how, well, if this is true, and this is true, and this is true, then this is the conclusion. He says sometimes this uncovering process that you must discover based on your priorities, now you do things, may involve logic, where you, again, lay it out, okay, I believe this, and I believe this, and I believe this, and if I put them together, this is what I come up with. He says sometimes your thought forms may take the form of argument, saying no to this and denial, no to this, and affirmation, yes to this. Now listen to this. What Ernest says is the form you use to get to this awareness of self is unimportant. What is important is that your mental practice allow your mind to believe the truth you're saying. He says what's important in the form that you find works for you is you must understand and accept and embody that which you want as a reality now. And he goes on and says again, over and over, each one of you must work out your own logic. It can be challenging. You see, study and contemplation of these ideas is not enough. You must practice these principles. You must begin to apply them in your life. And he says this on page 202. In actual practice, we must begin to think new thoughts about ourselves and our environment, though they contradict everything that appears to be real now. For that facet of you that has created your now can recreate a different now. For that past facet of you that has molded your life experience through choice can remold your life experience. This is what we teach. And what I also like is he's honest. He's on page 202, he says, this uncovering process may take time. It may take effort, but the reward of keeping your priorities in mind, the reward of refusing to be confused or defeated, the reward of daily choosing a new position in consciousness focused on a definite purpose and outcome. If you do that, you cannot fail. This is the story of Science of Mind. This is what Science of Mind offers you. And there are some people in this room who might not be able to believe it. How many of you have not heard me speak before? Have not heard me speak before? Many of you have. When I talk, I usually tell my story, how I got into this philosophy. Sometimes I go to a center and somebody will come up before service and says, "You're not going to tell your story again, are you?" I've heard it before. And part of me wants to look them in the eye and say, "You've heard it before. I've heard it 1,000 times." You see, I had a spinal fusion when I was 23. During surgery, got infected with E. coli. E. coli is a bad bug, and this was 40 years ago, and it was worse then. They said the only way to get it out was to cut it out. So over the next 11 years, they did 27 major surgical procedures on my spine and abdomen, cutting out the infection. They opened me from the front, from the back. They went down my legs. They came in from the bottom. They did things to me a person's not supposed to recover from. I went to the bathroom in a plastic bag because the E. coli just ate the lower end of my colon, so they said there weren't any hose. It was like a sieve. I remember weeks alone in my hospital room at night after everybody'd go home, screaming into my pillow that nobody deserves to hurt this much. I don't tell my story of healing to brag about how powerful I am. I tell my story because there might be somebody in the room who has a health challenge that's been called incurable. I tell my story because there might be somebody in the room who goes to bed every night in physical pain, wondering if it might be possible to find joy. I tell my story because there might be somebody in the room who has no hope. And I tell my story so they know I've been there. And what Science of Mind offers you is to take the first step, to turn from disease and begin to move towards health. You can start right where you are and begin to demonstrate to yourself your own magnificence. Would you allow me just a moment? Excuse me. Would you please stand up and... This perfection held in her arms is the truth of who you are, and you've got to discover it for yourself. What this center offers you are classes. What this center offers you, if you're frightened and you can't know, go sit in one of those chairs and let one of your own sisters or brothers come up and know a truth for you that you might not be able to know for yourself. You've got to get involved, and when you get involved, you just start where you are. The greatest thing about my healing is not that I got well. The greatest thing about my healing is I started from not believing I could ever do it. But I thought maybe I can use these principles so I won't cry myself to sleep every night. And when that happened, I acknowledged that what I did made a difference. And then I said another one right in front of me, just a little one. And when that happened, I acknowledged that I made the difference. I didn't give credit out there. It's difficult, but you continue to own about what you did. Begin to take credit. In fact, in my opinion, if anything good happens within 20 miles, you ought to take credit for it. You have to do more than just study. You have to do more than just think about using these principles. You've got to use them. And what this center offers you is a way to do that. You've got to figure it out for yourself. I don't think there's a magic pill. I don't think there's a new discipline that if you hold your palms up or have your feet flat on the floor, that kind of stuff. And I do that sometimes, but I don't. Anyway. I want to encourage you to get involved. Not just read a few books, get involved, take classes, get involved in the sacred service. Make this church, make this philosophy, make this organization part of the fabric of your life. And the way you do that is you get involved. And I want to say this honestly from my heart. One of the best ways to do that is that great big thermometer on the wall. When I was in Science of Mind for about 2 years, I talked a good line, I volunteered, I showed up and all that stuff, but I didn't always put my money where my mouth was. And we had a building program, and I remember what happened when I stepped up and committed. I remember when you bought this place, around $500,000, pretty close. And right after that, the whole world started to go downhill. I remember talking with Georgia about it, and Georgia just held to the idea that if we practice these principles, this won't matter to us. I notice you're in the middle of a building program. You need like $40,000 or $45,000 more to be committed to pay off your mortgage. 5 years. I encourage you to get involved with that, because when you put your money where your mouth is, it'll make all the difference in how you hold this center. They're giving me time from the back, so I need to wrap this up. So for those who didn't get the whole thing, I had 27 surgeries. I got letters from doctors saying there's no way he's going to get well. He'll have significant permanent disability. I'm 70. I don't have a bad back. I don't go to the bathroom in a plastic bag anymore. I healed my back and I have no pain. Whatever you're facing, whatever you are facing, you can start right now to take the first step to create the reality that you want. And you discover who you are through making your dreams come true. And I will leave you with this. Page 169 of Living the Science of Mind. The freedom. I remember when I read this the first time. The freedom, the power, and the joy you seek already exists. And it exists in your perception of who you are. And for each of us to begin to realize the promise of divine life, we must begin to personalize the attributes that heretofore we've given only to God. Hence, it is not enough to say that God is free, which of course is a true statement. But we must make this freedom our own. We must have the courage and the willingness to begin to accept that the freedom of God is my freedom. We must have the courage and the willingness to accept that the power of God is my power. We must have the courage and willingness to accept that the mind of God is my mind, the strength of God is my strength, and the joy of God is my joy. For when we own these truths as if they're true about us right now, we cease moving through human existence with just faith in God. You move through human existence with the faith of God. And from there, you can create miracle after miracle after miracle. It's an honor for me to stand in your presence. Thank you.